What's up, guys? Welcome back to Watch Chris. I am Chris. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel, hitting that bell icon, and of course, liking this video if you find it useful or helpful. I very much appreciate it. Today, we're taking a look at a brand called Branch Horology. And the watch that we're looking at today begs the question, how vintage can a modern watch actually go? This is a very vintage-inspired watch. Yes, there are plenty of watches out there that take inspiration from vintage watches and look very vintage. However, this watch actually feels vintage and is sized like a vintage watch, coming in at just around 36 millimeters. It gets a hand-wound movement, a sector dial, and an acrylic crystal. So does it miss the mark, or does it scratch that vintage urge that you might have without all the vintage problems? Let's flip the camera and take a look at Branch Horology and their sector dial dress watch. Branch Horology are located in Canada. Actually, this watch is assembled in Canada, so that is kind of important when you're thinking about a watch, where it comes from, where it's actually assembled. This is a very vintage looking and vintage feeling watch. There's a lot of reasons why it feels vintage. One of the main reasons is because you're not getting a sapphire crystal, you're not getting a mineral crystal, you are getting a domed acrylic crystal on this watch. And I really do like that. I actually sometimes prefer an acrylic crystal over even a sapphire crystal. There's something about the look of an acrylic crystal, the color that it gives, it's a little bit different from a sapphire crystal, which is usually very clear. An acrylic crystal gives you a little bit, just a touch of yellow almost. It gives a little bit of a warmer feel, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. This is also very boxed and domed. You can see here it's a 10.5 millimeter thick watch. That thickness is because of that domed acrylic crystal. The crystal on here is very high and very domed. You have a very large crown on here. It's around 5.5 millimeters. I say it's large because the case is actually not very big on this watch. It comes in at 36.4 millimeters, or at least with my calipers, and then the lug to lug is 42.5 millimeters. So this is a vintage sized watch. It's a large vintage sized watch. So as vintage watches go, this is on the larger side, or vintage style watches. This is on the larger side. If this was a vintage watch, it would be considered a jumbo or something like that. This is a manual wind watch. You are getting a Salida movement inside. It is the SW210. So that means this gets a Swiss hand wound movement inside. The dial is where it's at on this watch. The dial is simple, but really well executed. You have a sector dial, you have the Branch logo up at the top, and that is it. There is no other wording on the dial. There's no other logos. I really like that. Then you have the hour track. You have the primary indices there. It's sort of a two-tone silver dial, so it's a little bit darker than the center portion of the dial. And then you have a minute track on the outside of that. Really, really clean, beautiful dial on this watch. And then the hands. The hands are blued steel. They are heat blued, so those are genuine heat blued steel, which look really good against that silver background. This looks like a few different watches out there, a few different vintage watches, maybe from Longines and a few other brands. So I think that's where they're getting their inspiration from. Here's the case back. The case back is snapped in. So this is a snap-on case back. That means you're not going to get incredible water resistance with this watch, but it's definitely not a watch that you're going to go swimming with. It definitely keeps the theme here, the vintage theme. They are going for a vintage watch with a modern movement and a modern dial. However, this definitely feels and looks like a vintage watch because of the snap-on case back and that acrylic crystal. You do get a thinner case profile because of the case back. I do want to mention that. So you can see it's brushed, and then you have a polished edge all the way around. This is the perfect spot for an engraving. This would be a really nice gift for someone who is a watch collector that wants a vintage watch but doesn't want to deal with all the problems of owning a vintage watch. So this is like a vintage watch that you could wear every day. The strap on this is also really nice. It comes from a manufacturer out of Chicago, I believe. I've actually ordered a strap from them in the past. I put it on one of my Vacherons. I love it. I think they make really good straps, and this one is really nice. It's a very large pebble calf leather, and then it has the name of the brand right there on the buckle. So it actually is not Branch on there. It's the name of the manufacturer of the strap. And same thing for the strap on here. It just says the name of that brand. I think this is a really nice strap considering the price on this watch. The price here is $776. You're getting really a vintage feeling, vintage looking watch that is modern. So you have a stainless steel case, you have an acrylic crystal, and you're getting a snap-on case back, but you're getting a beautiful bright silver dial with heat blued hands and a Sellita SW210, which is extremely reliable, hand-wound Swiss-made movement, and it's assembled in Canada. This is a really great package for someone who likes vintage watches, but maybe doesn't want to bother with the everyday problems that you have from vintage watches. On my wrist today, I have my Heuer 510-501 full black PVD. I love this watch. See the logo right there, Heuer. It looks very similar to the Branch horology logo. Definitely taking some inspiration from Heuer here. I like that as well. It says Branch in their name. It's not, the Heuer logo, but it's kind of similar. They've taken some, a little bit of inspiration from that, or maybe a lot of inspiration from the Heuer logo. I like it. I love this watch. This is a vintage watch, and it doesn't run very, very well, but it runs pretty good for the age. It tells time pretty well, but I don't wear them on a regular basis. If I did, I'd probably have a lot more problems. And there it is on my 7.5 inch wrist. Like I was saying before, this is a 36.4 millimeter watch in diameter, 10.5 millimeters thick. That's including the boxed acrylic crystal. It's really very domed as well. You have a 42.5 millimeter lug to lug. So this fits really well on my 7.5 inch wrist. It will fit on much smaller wrists and probably some larger wrists as well. Depends on how you like your watch. All in all, a great package for $776. I think it's really good looking. I like their logo. I like this dial, and I like the overall look and feel of this watch on my wrist. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of this watch? What do you think of a modern vintage watch that's actually made like a vintage watch with a modern movement and a dial, case? Everything here is really almost what you would have gotten from a vintage watch back in the 1950s, except stainless steel here, because you're not getting a brass-filled case. This is a 316L stainless steel watch, but you are getting the acrylic crystal, which you can buff scratches out of. And I still own vintage. Like, this is a mineral crystal on this watch, on my Heuer. You can't get the scratches off of that. I much rather an acrylic crystal than a mineral crystal any day. Sometimes I prefer it over a sapphire crystal, and specifically a watch like this. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I will put a link to Branch Horology down in the comment section or down in the description. Definitely check out their website if you are interested in their watches. There is no lume, obviously, so I will not be doing a lume shop, but you can see, very, very nice on my 7.5 inch wrist. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. Super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. And that's really it, guys. Thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.